10,000 years ago, the rulers of the galaxy made a decision that would change everything. They found a small blue world on the edge of an ordinary star system. The creatures living there were young and primitive. They had just learned to build cities and sail across their oceans, but something about them was very wrong. The Galactic Concord was an alliance of 12 ancient species. They had ruled the stars for 500,000 years. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. They knew which species would become useful servants and which would become dangerous enemies. When their scouts studied the humans of Earth, they saw something that filled them with fear. Humans could change. Their bodies fought off diseases that killed other species. Their minds adapted to any situation. They bred fast, thought faster, and they never, ever gave up. A conquered scientist ran the numbers and turned pale. If left alone, humans would reach the stars in less than 10,000 years. And once they did, nothing would stop them. The conquered did what they always did with dangerous species. They built a prison. A massive energy barrier called the Veil wrapped around the entire solar system. No signal could escape. No ship could leave. Earth was cut off from the universe, and the humans never even knew it. The conquered expected them to destroy themselves within a few centuries. Dangerous species always did. Then the conquered could forget about them forever. 10,000 years passed. The conquered forgot about Earth. They had other matters to attend to, other threats to manage, other civilizations to control. Earth became a footnote in ancient records, a warning story told to young diplomats about the dangers that lurked in unexplored space. Then the veil collapsed. Ambassador Eth was in her office when the emergency signal came. She was a tall and slender being with silver skin and eyes like polished gems. She had served the conquered for 300 years, and she had never seen a priority alert this high. "The veil around Saul has fallen," the message said. "All available diplomatic vessels report immediately." Felt cold fear run through her body. She had studied the old records. She knew what Earth was. She knew what humans were supposed to be. Her teachers had called them monsters, beasts that wore the shape of civilized beings. If they had escaped their prison, the galaxy was in terrible danger. She joined a fleet of 50 conquered ships. Warriors, scientists, and diplomats from all 12 elder species gathered for the mission. They expected to find a dead world, burned by nuclear fire or poisoned by pollution. That was how dangerous species always ended. What they found was much worse. Earth was beautiful. Blue oceans sparkled under white clouds. Green forests covered the continents. Cities stood tall and proud, their architecture unlike anything in conquered records. But the cities were empty. The forests were silent. 8 billion humans had lived on this world, and now there was no one. "Where did they go?" whispered as her ship descended through the atmosphere. The science teams found no bodies, no signs of war or disease. The humans had simply left as if they had packed their bags and moved away. Their technology was strange and advanced, far beyond what the conquered had predicted. Machines that seemed to grow like plants. Energy systems that pulled power from dimensions the conquered barely understood. And everywhere the same symbol, a human hand reaching up toward the stars. The fleet commander, a massive warrior named, wanted to destroy everything. "Burn it all," he growled. "Whatever happened here, we must make sure it never spreads." But before he could give the order, they found the signal. It came from the moon. A massive spire of white metal stood on the gray surface, taller than any building on Earth. It was broadcasting a message in every known galactic language, repeating the same words over and over again. "We have been waiting. The trial begins now." Felt her blood turn to ice. The humans had not just survived. They had known about the conquered. They had known about the veil, and they had been preparing. Commander ordered an immediate retreat. The fleet turned toward the edge of the solar system, their engines burning at maximum power. They had to warn the conquered. They had to tell the galaxy what had happened. They never made it. The veil reappeared. One moment space was empty. The next, a wall of shimmering energy surrounded the entire system. The fleet's sensors screamed warnings. Their weapons were useless against it. Their engines could not push through. "We are trapped," said quietly, "just like the humans were." For 3 days the fleet tried everything. They fired their most powerful weapons at the barrier. They searched for weak points. They sent messages begging for help. Nothing worked. The veil was perfect, a prison designed by the greatest minds in galactic history, and now it held them. On the 4th day, the spire on the moon sent a new message. "If you wish to understand, come to us. We will explain everything. We will show you what humanity has become. We will reveal the secret that the conquered has kept hidden for 500,000 years. The choice is yours." The fleet commanders argued for hours. Some wanted to keep fighting. Others wanted to wait for rescue that might never come, but understood the truth. They had no choice. The humans had all the power now, and the only way forward was to learn what they wanted. "I will go," she said. "Someone must speak with them. Someone must learn the truth." Commander laughed at her. "You will die, Ambassador. The humans are monsters. Everyone knows this." Looked at him with her gem-like eyes. Everyone knew they would destroy themselves. Everyone knew they could not escape the veil. Perhaps everyone was wrong about many things. She took a small shuttle down to the moon. As she approached the white spire, a door opened in its side. Warm light spilled out, welcoming her. She landed her ship and stepped onto the dusty lunar surface. A woman was waiting for her. She looked human in every way. Medium height, dark hair, brown skin. She wore simple clothes and a gentle smile. She looked like she might be 30 years old, but her eyes were different. Her eyes held depths that could not understand, wisdom and patience that seemed impossible. "Welcome, Ambassador," the woman said. Her voice was soft and calm. "My name is Myra Cole. I have been waiting to meet your people for a very long time." "How long?" asked. Myra's smile grew wider. "I am 7,400 years old, and I am one of the younger ones." She gestured toward the open door. "Please come inside. We have much to discuss, and I think you will find our story very interesting." Looked at the ancient woman with the young face. She looked at the empty earth hanging in the black sky. She thought about everything she had been taught, every lie she had believed. Then she followed Myra Cole into the tower, ready to learn the truth about humanity. The truth that the conquered had hidden for 500,000 years. The truth that would change the galaxy forever. The inside of the tower was not what expected. She had imagined cold metal walls and harsh lights. Instead, she found gardens. Living plants grew along the corridors. Water flowed in small streams beside the pathways. Soft light came from the ceiling like gentle sunlight. It felt like walking through a peaceful forest. Myra Cole led her deeper into the structure. They passed through rooms filled with strange machines and beautiful art. Saw paintings that showed human history, sculptures that captured moments of joy and sorrow, and holographic displays that told stories without words. "You seem surprised," Myra said. "Did you expect something different?" "I expected weapons," admitted. "War rooms, factories building ships to attack the conquered. My people were told that humans were violent and dangerous." Myra laughed softly. "We can be violent when we must, but that is not what defines us. Come, let me show you who we really are." They entered a vast chamber filled with floating screens. Each screen showed images from Earth's past, watched as the story of human isolation unfolded before her eyes. The first 1,000 years had been terrible. When the veil appeared, humans did not understand what had happened. They continued their wars, their conflicts, their endless struggles for power. Nuclear weapons burned cities. Pollution poisoned the air and water. Billions died from disease and hunger. The human population dropped from 8 billion to less than 1 billion. "We almost proved the conquered right," Myra said quietly. We almost destroyed ourselves, but something changed. The screens showed a different time. Scientists working together across old borders, leaders putting aside their differences, humans rebuilding their world not as separate nations, but as one people. We realized that we were alone, Myra explained. Completely alone in the universe, or so we thought. That knowledge changed us. We stopped fighting each other and started asking bigger questions. Where did the barrier come from? Why were we trapped? And how could we escape? The answer came from an unexpected place. Human scientists studying their own bodies discovered something hidden in their genes, a sequence of DNA that served no apparent purpose. It had been there since the beginning of human history, silent and waiting. We called it the gene, Myra said. When activated, it does something remarkable. It tells the body to stop aging. Cells repair themselves perfectly. Diseases cannot take hold. The person becomes frozen in time, neither growing older nor dying from natural causes. Stared at her, you stopped death itself. Not stopped, delayed. We can still be killed by violence or accidents, but old age, that holds no power over us anymore. Myra touched her own face. I was 32 years old when I activated my gene. That was over 7,000 years ago. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have learned every language that humans have ever spoken. I have mastered sciences that did not exist when I was born. The screens showed more images. Humans who had activated the gene, living for centuries, accumulating knowledge and wisdom beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. We call ourselves the Unchanging, Myra continued. There are millions of us now. Some are even older than me. The oldest, our founder, has lived for over 9,000 years. His name is Elias Rook, and he was the first to understand the truth about the veil. Felt dizzy. The Concord's oldest members lived for perhaps 5,000 years, and they were considered ancient beyond measure. But humans were living longer, much longer, and they had been doing it in secret, trapped behind a barrier that was supposed to destroy them. How did your founder discover the truth? She asked. Myra smiled sadly. Elias was a soldier before the veil. When the barrier appeared, he was young and angry. He spent his first century trying to break through by force. He failed. So he changed his approach. He became a scientist, then a historian, then an archaeologist. He searched through every scrap of alien technology that had ever touched Earth. He studied the veil itself, learning its patterns and its purpose. The screens showed a man with gray eyes and a serious face. He was standing before a vast machine, presenting his findings to a council of other unchanging. It took him 3,000 years, Myra said, but Elias finally understood. The veil was not just a prison, it was a test. The Conquered had used it before on other species. They would trap a young civilization and wait. If that civilization destroyed itself, the Conquered was right to fear them. If they survived and escaped, they had proven themselves worthy of respect. Felt sick. The Conquered told us the veil was a protection, a way to keep dangerous species contained. That is partly true, but they never told you how many species they trapped, or what happened to all of them. Myra's eyes grew hard. Elias found records of 142 quarantined worlds. Every single one of them died. Some burned in nuclear fire. Some starved when their resources ran out. Some went mad from isolation and tore themselves apart. The Conquered watched them all die and did nothing. Why? Whispered. Because the Conquered does not want equals. They want subjects. Any species that might grow powerful enough to challenge them is eliminated before they can become a threat. The veil is not protection. It is genocide with extra steps. Wanted to argue. She wanted to defend her government, her people, everything she had believed in for 300 years. But the evidence was there on the screens. World after world, species after species, all dead, all forgotten. Humanity was supposed to be victim number 143, Myra said. But we refused to die. And once we understood the game, we decided to change the rules. She led to a window that looked out at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, beautiful and empty. The unchanging spent thousands of years preparing. We developed technology that the conquered cannot imagine. We built ships that travel through folded space. We created weapons that could crack moons in half, but we did not use them for war. We used them for rescue. Did not understand, rescue. Elias realized something important. If the conquered had quarantined 142 species, some of them might still be alive, trapped in their own veils, struggling to survive just like us. So we went looking for them. The screens changed to show maps of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of quarantine zones. Most were dark and dead, but 12 of them glowed with life. We found 12 surviving species, Myra said proudly. 12 civilizations that refused to give up. We punched holes in their barriers. We made contact. We shared our technology and our hope. Together, we formed an alliance called the Awakened. Could barely breathe. The Conquered does not know about this. The Conquered knows nothing. They stopped watching the quarantine zones long ago. They were too arrogant to imagine that anyone could survive, let alone escape. Myra turned to face directly. But now it is time for them to learn. That is why we brought your fleet here. That is why we collapsed our own veil and let you find us. You wanted us to come. We needed witnesses, trustworthy people who could see the truth and carry it back to the galaxy. Myra reached out and took his hand. Her grip was warm and gentle. I have watched you, Ambassador. I have seen how you treat others with respect. I have seen your doubts and your questions. You are not like the conquered leaders who give orders and never think about consequences. You are someone who cares about truth. Looked into Myra's ancient eyes. What do you want from me? I want you to see what humanity has become. Not the monsters the conquered fears, but something much more powerful, something much more dangerous to those who rule through lies. Myra smiled. I want you to see our home, and then I want you to help us change the galaxy. She raised her hand, and the wall behind her dissolved into light. A gateway opened, showing glimpses of impossible wonders on the other side. Welcome to Elysium, Myra said. Welcome to humanity's greatest secret. Stepped through the gateway and forgot how to breathe. She stood on a platform of white crystal, floating in the middle of empty space. But the space was not empty at all. All around her, stretching in every direction, was a structure so vast that her mind could not process it. A sphere of metal and light surrounded a captured star, drinking its energy like a cup holding an ocean. Cities covered the inner surface of the sphere. Billions of lights sparkled like jewels against the darkness. Ships flew between the towers, so many that they looked like swarms of glowing insects. Rings and platforms floated at different levels, each one home to millions of people. This is Elysium, Myra said beside her. Our true home, the place we built while the conquered thought we were dying in our cage. Had seen wonders before. The conquered controlled thousands of worlds, and she had visited many of them, but nothing compared to this. The scale was impossible. The engineering was beyond anything she had ever imagined. The whole structure was larger than some star systems. How many people live here? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. 900 billion, Myra answered. Humans from Earth and members of the 12 species we freed from their quarantine zones. We are not all unchanging. Most people here live normal, but we work together, learn together, and grow together. A transport ship arrived to carry them deeper into the structure, pressed her face against the window like a child, watching the wonders pass by. Gardens that floated in zero gravity, factories that built starships from raw energy, schools where children learned from teachers who had been alive for thousands of years. Why did you build this in secret? Asked. With power like this, you could have torn down the veil whenever you wanted. You could have conquered the conquered. Myra sat back in her seat and looked tired for the first time since they met. That question took us a very long time to answer. When Elias first proposed building Elysium, Many humans wanted exactly what you described. They wanted revenge. They wanted to make the conquered pay for trapping us, for all the species they had killed. What changed their minds? Time, perspective, wisdom. Myra smiled slightly. When you live for thousands of years, you start to think differently. Revenge feels good in the moment, but it creates cycles of pain that last forever. The conquered punished us because they feared us. If we punished them in return, their children would fear us even more. The hatred would never end. The transport landed at a grand building near the heart of Elysium. Massive columns held up a roof that seemed to touch the artificial sky. Guards stood at the entrance, but they were not warriors. They were scholars and scientists, their uniforms covered with symbols of knowledge and discovery. "This is the Hall of Voices," Myra explained. "The seat of our government. The Elder Council meets here to make decisions for all of humanity." Inside, the hall was filled with light and sound. Thousands of humans walked the corridors, debating and discussing. Saw people of every shape and color, speaking hundreds of different languages. Holographic displays showed news from every corner of Elysium and beyond. Myra led her to a chamber at the center of the building. A round table sat in the middle, surrounded by 13 chairs. 12 of them were occupied by humans who looked ordinary but felt ancient. Their eyes held the same impossible depth as Myra's, the weight of centuries pressing down on their souls. The 13th chair held a man who made all the others seem young by comparison. He was tall and thin, with gray eyes that seemed to see through his body and into her thoughts. His face was calm and serious, but not unkind. He wore simple clothes, nothing that showed his rank or power. But when he stood to greet her, everyone in the room grew silent. "Ambassador Ev," he said. His voice was soft but carried easily through the chamber. "I am Elia's Rook. Thank you for accepting our invitation." Bowed her head. "I did not feel that I had much choice." Elias laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. "You always have a choice. That is the first lesson of being human. No matter how trapped you feel, there is always another option. Sometimes you just have to look harder to find it." He gestured for her to sit at an empty chair that had been prepared for her. The other council members watched her with curiosity, but no hostility. They seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. "You have questions," Elias said. "Please ask them. We have waited 10,000 years for this conversation. We can wait a little longer for you to understand." Organized her thoughts. "Why now? Why reveal yourselves after all this time?" "Because the galaxy is dying," Elias answered simply. "The conquered has ruled for 500,000 years, but their rule is built on fear and control. They suppress new ideas. They destroy potential rivals. They keep every species fighting each other so no one can challenge their power. In another 100,000 years, the conquered will control everything, and then progress will stop forever." He waved his hand, and holographic images appeared above the table. They showed conquered fleets destroying research stations, secret police arresting scientists for asking dangerous questions, entire civilizations bombed back to primitive times because they developed technology too quickly. "We could destroy the conquered," Elias continued. "We have the power, but that would make us no better than them. We would just become the new tyrants, and someday another species would rise to destroy us." He shook his head. "We do not want power. We want change. Real, lasting change that will give every species in the galaxy a chance to reach their full potential." How asked. "By exposing the truth. The conquered has lied to the galaxy for 500,000 years. They have told everyone that quarantined species are monsters who deserve to die. They have hidden the evidence of their crimes, but we have kept records. We have proof of everything they have done." Myra spoke up. "In 3 days, we will broadcast a message to every corner of the galaxy. We will show everyone the truth about the quarantine zones. We will reveal the 12 species that survived and joined us, and we will offer a choice." "What choice?" "Stay with the conquered," Elias said, or join the awakened. Build a new order based on cooperation instead of fear. Help us create a galaxy where no species is ever imprisoned again, where knowledge is shared freely, where everyone has the chance to grow. Thought about her own people, They had served the conquered faithfully for 200,000 years. They had believed the lies, followed the rules, never questioned their masters. And all that time, innocent species had been dying in secret prisons. The conquered will not accept this, she said. They will fight. Yes, Elias agreed. They will. That is why we brought you here. When the conquered sends their fleet, they will find us waiting, not with an army of conquest, but with witnesses. People like you who have seen our civilization, who understand that we mean no harm. And if they attack anyway? Elias' gray eyes grew hard. Then we will defend ourselves, but we will not strike first. We have waited 10,000 years. We can wait a little longer to see if the galaxy is ready for peace. The council members nodded in agreement. These were beings who measured time in centuries, who had learned patience that other species could not imagine. They were playing a game that would take generations to complete, and they were willing to lose a few battles to win the war. Looked around the table at the ancient faces, the wise eyes, the gentle smiles. These were not monsters. They were teachers, scientists, philosophers, and dreamers. They had built an impossible civilization in secret, and now they were offering to share it with everyone. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. Elias smiled. "Go back to your fleet. Tell them what you have seen. When the conquered armada arrives, stand with us as we deliver our message. Help the galaxy understand that humanity is not their enemy. We never were." Thought about everything she had learned, the lies she had believed, the truth she had discovered, the choice that now lay before her. She stood and bowed to the elder council. "I will do what I can." "That is all we ask," Elias said. "That is all anyone can ever ask." The message reached every corner of the galaxy in a single moment. It broke through conquered communication blocks like they did not exist. It played on every screen, every speaker, every holographic display. Trillions of beings across thousands of worlds stopped what they were doing and listened to a voice they had never heard before. Commander Elias Rook stood before the cameras, his gray eyes steady and calm. Behind him, the stars of Elysium sparkled like a field of diamonds. "People of the galaxy," he said, "my name is Elias Rook and I speak for humanity. For 10,000 years we have been prisoners. The conquered trapped us behind a barrier they called the Veil, expecting us to destroy ourselves like so many other species before us. We did not. We survived. We grew stronger. And now we have returned with a truth that your masters have hidden for 500,000 years." The screen changed to show images. Planets surrounded by energy barriers. Dead worlds covered in ash and ruin. Species that had been wiped out and forgotten. The conquered has quarantined 142 civilizations since they rose to power. They told you these species were dangerous monsters who deserved their fate. They lied. These were young civilizations like yours once was. They were artists, scientists, dreamers, and explorers. And the conquered murdered them all because they feared what they might become. Elias let the images speak for themselves. Worlds that had been beautiful before the veil trapped them. Cities that had been full of life before isolation drove their people mad. Children who had never had a chance to grow up. Humanity was supposed to be victim number 143, but we refused to die. We learned the truth about our prison and we decided to fight back, not with weapons but with hope. We found 12 other species who survived their quarantine and we freed them. Together, we formed an alliance called the Awakened. The screen showed ships from 13 different species flying in formation. Strange and wonderful beings standing side by side with humans, working together, building together, dreaming together. Today, we offer the galaxy a choice. You can continue to live under conquered rule, accepting their lies and their control, or you can join us in building something new. A galaxy where no species is ever imprisoned again. A galaxy where knowledge is shared freely and growth is encouraged. A galaxy where fear no longer controls everything. Elias stepped forward, his eyes burning with quiet fire. The conquered has 3 days to respond. If they choose peace, we will welcome them as partners in a new age. If they choose war, we will defend ourselves. But make no mistake, humanity has not survived 10,000 years of isolation to become tyrants ourselves. We do not want your submission. We want your friendship. The message ended. Silence fell across the galaxy, and then chaos erupted. The conquered High Senate met in emergency session. 12 of the most powerful beings in the universe screamed at each other across a table that had witnessed 500,000 years of history. Some wanted immediate attack. Others wanted negotiation. A few wanted to pretend the message had never happened. In the end, fear won. It always did with the conquered. They assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 12,000 warships from all 12 elder species gathered at the edge of the Sol system. Weapons that could destroy planets. Shields that could block stars. Warriors who had trained for centuries and never known defeat. High Executor commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive vessel covered in weapons and armor. He had watched the human message with growing rage. How dare these primitives challenge the conquered? How dare they expose secrets that had kept the galaxy stable for so long? When we break through their veil, he growled to his officers, we will burn everything. Their secret civilization, their alliance, their hope. We will make them an example that the galaxy will never forget. But when the conquered fleet entered the Sol system, they found something unexpected. The human fleet was waiting for them. Ships from 13 species hung in perfect formation around the sun. Their technology gleamed with power that the conquered could not understand. There were not 12,000 of them. There were 40,000, each one more advanced than anything in the conquered armada. And standing in front of them, broadcasting to both fleets, was Elias Rook. High Executor, Elias said calmly, I expected you would choose war. Your kind always does. But I am going to offer you one more chance to avoid the destruction of your fleet. Laughed, his deep voice echoing through his ship. You think 40,000 ships can defeat the combined might of the conquered? We have ruled the galaxy for 500,000 years. We have crushed every enemy who ever rose against us. Yes, Elias agreed. You have, by trapping them in cages and waiting for them to die. You have never fought an enemy who had time to prepare. You have never faced a species that refused to give up. He smiled slightly. But I am not asking you to surrender. I am offering something else. What? Single combat, one champion from each side. If your champion wins, humanity will return to isolation for another 10,000 years. We will seal ourselves behind the veil and never trouble the conquered again. Elias paused. But if our champion wins, the conquered must dissolve. You will release all quarantined worlds. You will share power with the awakened. And you will never imprison another species again. Stared at the screen. You would risk everything on one fight. We would risk everything on giving you a chance to lose with honor instead of being destroyed with shame. Elias' gray eyes were hard as stone. You have seen our fleet. You know what our technology can do. If we fight, you will lose. Many of your warriors will die for nothing. But if you accept the challenge, only one being needs to fall. The conquered commanders argued among themselves. Some saw the trap. Some saw the opportunity. Saw only a chance to prove his superiority. I accept, he said, and I will be the conquered's champion. No human can defeat me in combat. I have trained for 3,000 years. Elias nodded. Then you will face our champion in the ancient arena station. The whole galaxy will watch. And when you lose, you will know that the age of the conquered has finally ended. I will not lose, snarled. Elias' smile grew wider. That is exactly what makes this interesting. Ambassador watched the exchange from the bridge of her diplomatic ship. She had spent the last 3 days telling the other conquered delegates what she had seen. Some believed her, others called her a traitor, but all of them were watching now, waiting to see what would happen. Myra Cole appeared on the screen beside her. "I wanted to thank you," the ancient human said. "Your reports helped our cause. Many beings across the galaxy are questioning the conquered now because of what you shared." "Is it true?" asked. "Can your champion defeat? He is the greatest warrior they have ever produced." Myra smiled. "Has trained for 3,000 years. That is impressive by conquered standards." She paused. "Our champion has trained for 7,000. She was a soldier before she was anything else. She has studied every fighting style in the galaxy because she had centuries to learn them all." Your champion is female." "Her name is Myra Cole," Myra said gently, "and I think you already know her." Felt her blood turn cold. She remembered the kind woman who had welcomed her to the moon, the patient teacher who had shown her humanity's secrets, the gentle soul who spoke of hope instead of revenge. She whispered, "you are going to fight." Myra nodded. "Someone has to, and I volunteered. After 7,000 years, I have learned that some battles are worth fighting even if you might lose." She touched the screen softly, as if reaching through the distance between them. "Watch closely, Ambassador, and no matter what happens, remember what humanity really is." The transmission ended. Sat alone on her ship, staring at the stars. In 12 hours, the fate of the galaxy would be decided by two immortals fighting in an ancient arena. And she could do nothing but watch and pray that the woman who had shown her hope would survive to see it fulfilled. The arena station floated in empty space between the two fleets. It was older than the Concord itself, built by a civilization that had vanished before history began. Its circular fighting platform had witnessed thousands of duels across the ages. Today, it would witness the most important one of all. Trillions watched across the galaxy. Every screen showed the same image, a ring of white stone surrounded by seats that floated in zero gravity. Cameras captured every angle. Translators converted the commentary into 10,000 languages. Rich and poor, young and old, ruler and servant, all stopped their lives to watch two immortals decide the future. High Executor entered first. He was a monster of evolution, the perfect warrior. 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. Scales covered his body like living armor. Bioelectric sparks crackled across his skin, ready to stun or kill with a touch. He stood 8 feet tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. He raised his arms to the cameras and roared. "I am champion of the conquered, undefeated in 3,000 years of combat. Today I will prove that the elder species deserve their place as rulers of the galaxy. Today I will crush humanity's hope beneath my feet." The conquered delegates cheered. Their champion was the greatest warrior they had ever produced. Victory was certain. It had to be. Then Myra Cole walked onto the platform. She looked small and fragile compared to the monster facing her. She stood 5 feet 6 inches tall. She weighed perhaps 130 pounds. She wore simple clothes without armor. She carried no weapons. Her hands were empty, hanging loosely at her sides. Laughed, "This is humanity's champion. This tiny female with no claws, no weapons, no armor." He stepped forward, his massive body casting a shadow over her. "I will try not to kill you too quickly. The galaxy deserves a good show." Myra looked up at him with calm eyes. "You have trained for 3,000 years, High Executor. That is a very long time. You must have learned many things." "I have mastered every combat form known to the. I have killed warriors from every elder species. I have never been defeated," spread his 4 arms wide. "What have you learned in your short little life?" Myra smiled slightly. "I have learned patience." The signal sounded. The duel began. Attacked immediately. He was fast for his size, terrifyingly fast. His 4 arms struck like hammers, each blow powerful enough to shatter bones. Bioelectric energy crackled around his claws, ready to paralyze anything he touched. Myra was not there. She moved like water, like wind, like something that existed between moments. Claws passed through empty air where she had been standing. His electricity discharged into nothing. He spun, struck again, and again found only empty space. "Stand still," he roared. "Why would I do that?" Myra asked from behind him. He turned and lunged. She stepped aside. He swept with all four arms at once. She ducked beneath them like they were moving through honey. He tried to grab her, to crush her, to catch her with his electrical field. Nothing worked. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The greatest warrior in history could not touch a small human woman with no weapons. Grew frustrated. Frustrated became angry. Angry became desperate. He abandoned his training and simply tried to overwhelm her with raw power. He threw everything he had at her, holding nothing back. Myra let him exhaust himself. When he finally paused to catch his breath, she was standing in the same spot where the duel had begun. She had not even broken a sweat. She looked at him with eyes that held 7,000 years of wisdom, and she shook her head. "You fight like someone who has never truly been afraid," she said softly. "Someone who has always known they would win. That is the weakness of the conquered. You have never faced an enemy who had nothing to lose and everything to prove." She moved. Could not follow her. One moment she was standing still. The next she was beside him, her fingers pressing into points on his body that he did not know existed. Pain exploded through his nervous system. His muscles locked. His bioelectricity turned against him, shocking his own organs. He fell to his knees, then onto his face, completely paralyzed. Myra stood over him. She could have killed him. Everyone knew it. One more strike and the greatest warrior in the galaxy would be dead. Instead, she knelt down and helped him roll onto his back. She looked into his eyes with something that might have been compassion. "I am not your enemy," she said quietly. "I never was, none of us were." She stood and faced the cameras. The whole galaxy was watching. Trillions of beings held their breath, waiting for her to speak. "You have seen what humanity can do," she said. "You have seen our strength, our patience, our skill. But none of that is why the conquered truly feared us. None of that is the real reason they locked us away for 10,000 years." She paused and looked at the stars. "When humans first reached into space, we did not find an empty galaxy. We found primitive worlds, young species just beginning to understand their universe. And instead of conquering them, we taught them. We shared our knowledge, our technology, our dreams. We helped them grow." Images appeared on the screens. Humans walking among strange alien civilizations, not as masters but as friends, teaching children, building schools, healing the sick, lifting up the fallen. The conquered discovered what we were doing. They watched us spread hope across the stars, and they understood something that terrified them more than any weapon or army. Myra's voice grew soft, but carried to every corner of the galaxy. "Kindness is contagious. When you help someone, they want to help others. When you teach someone, they want to teach. When you give someone hope, that hope spreads like fire until nothing can contain it. The conquered built their power on fear and control. They could not allow a species that spread kindness and cooperation. We were too dangerous." She looked directly into the cameras. "That is the timeless secret they never revealed. Humanity was not quarantined because we were violent or aggressive or dangerous. We were quarantined because we were kind. Because everywhere we went, we made allies instead of servants, friends instead of subjects, partners instead of prisoners. The conquered could not allow that to continue." Silence filled the arena. Silence filled the fleets. Silence filled the galaxy. "Today, the quarantine ends," Myra continued. "Not just for humanity, but for every species the conquered ever imprisoned. The barrier walls will fall. The lies will end. And a new age will begin, built not on fear, but on the simple truth that we are stronger together than we could ever be apart." She extended her hand toward the cameras, toward the watching trillions, toward all the frightened beings who had lived their whole lives under conquered rule. "Join us," she said, "not as subjects but as partners, not as servants but as friends. Help us build a galaxy where no one is ever imprisoned again, where every species has the chance to grow and learn and become whatever they dream of being. That is what humanity has always wanted. That is what we fought 10,000 years to offer you." The screens showed reactions across the galaxy, cheering crowds on 100 worlds, conquered soldiers lowering their weapons, elder species leaders sitting in stunned silence as everything they believed crumbled around them. Watch from her ship with tears streaming down her silver cheeks. She understood now. She understood everything. 1 year later, she stood on Earth. The planet had come back to life. Humans had returned from Elysium, rebuilding there, planting new forests, cleaning the oceans. Children played in parks where ancient cities had once burned. Schools taught the history of the long isolation, ensuring that no one would ever forget. Myra Cole walked beside her through a forest of tall trees. Birds sang in the branches. Sunlight filtered through the leaves. It was peaceful beyond words. "Do you ever regret it?" asked, "living for so long, seeing so much?" Myra thought for a moment. "Sometimes. Immortality is a heavy burden. You lose so many people over the centuries. Friends grow old and die while you stay the same. It can make you feel very alone. But it also gives you perspective. When you have watched 10,000 years of history, you understand that change is always possible, that hope is always worth fighting for, that even the longest night eventually ends in sunrise." She smiled at. "And you get to see moments like this. A galaxy learning to trust again, species that were enemies becoming friends, the beginning of something wonderful." A young human child ran up to them, laughing. She had been born after the awakening, in the first generation that would never know the isolation. She looked at Myra with curious eyes. "What were the stars like when you were alone?" she asked. Myra knelt down and smiled gently. "Lonely, very lonely, but we never stopped reaching for them, and neither should you." The child laughed and ran off to play with her friends, alien and human children together, building castles in the dirt. Watched them and felt something warm in her heart. This is what the conquered feared. This is what they tried so hard to destroy. "Yes," Myra agreed. "And this is what survived. This is what will always survive, no matter how hard anyone tries to crush it." She looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the evening darkness. "Hope," she said softly, "the most dangerous weapon in the universe." And somewhere among those stars, a galaxy was learning to believe in it again.